We got another good one for you this week, folks. Hope you're ready for it, because here at SC, we are ramping up the scares for October. This one comes from a writer whose work you know we love, and I hope that you do too. So let's get right into it. As the sun began its descent behind the jagged peaks of the Rocky Mountains, casting long cold shadows across the empty highway, a lone traveler named Ethan pressed on. The relentless rain obscured his vision, turning the world into a murky canvas of grays and blacks. The wipers of his old pickup struggled to keep up, battling against the deluge as if trying to match the frantic pace of Ethan's heartbeat. Each thunderclap echoed like a gunshot in the close confines of the truck, and the wind's mournful howl sounded like a lonesome, chilling dirge. Suddenly, a beacon of light pierced through the gloom ahead, announcing salvation in the form of a roadside motel. Its neon sign flickered, promising respite from the storm. With a mix of relief and apprehension, Ethan turned his truck toward the only shelter he'd seen in what felt like hours. The bell above the door chimed discordantly as Ethan pushed it open, stepping into the musty embrace of the motel's lobby. The air hung heavy with the scent of stale cigarettes and forgotten dreams. The clerk, a gaunt woman with eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world, looked up from behind the counter, her gaze fixed and vacant. Her lips, devoid of any smile, were thin, taut lines on her face. "Room 313, she rasped, her voice like nails scratching down a chalkboard. "It's the only one we have left. But once you check in, don't you go opening any other doors, you hear?" She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Whatever you do, don't open room 313. Ethan stared at her, bewildered by her cryptic warning. Before he could respond, she had already reached for a key, her gnarled fingers wrapping around it like a life raft. As Ethan ascended the creaking stairs to his room, the floorboards groaning under his weight, each step echoed his pounding heart. The room at the end of the hall seemed to beckon him, its darkness an ominous silhouette against the faint light spilling from beneath the door. He hesitated, the clerk's words echoing in his ears. "Don't open room 313. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window panes and the sound of rain intensified, drumming against the glass like frantic fingers tapping for attention. Shaking off his unease, Ethan inserted the key. It turned with a sound that seemed unnaturally loud in the silence of the hallway. The door creaked open, revealing a room shrouded in darkness. Cautiously, Ethan stepped inside, his eyes struggling to pierce the gloom. The window was barricaded with what looked like old wooden shutters, and the curtains were drawn, sealing the room off from the outside world. As his eyes adjusted, he began to make out the room's contents. A bed with a rumpled, unmade sheet lay in one corner, its headboard fashioned from what looked like a crude wooden cross. A television set sat on a rickety table next to the bed, its screen blank, as if mirroring the emptiness of the room. A single chair stood in the corner facing the door as though someone had been waiting to escape. Ethan approached the window and pressed against it, his forehead leaving a damp smudge on the glass. Through the gaps in the shutters he could see a sliver of the stormy night, just enough to confirm that he was trapped in a room without windows. Panic started to rise within him, hot and suffocating. The room was stifling, the air thick and heavy, as if laden with secrets best left undisturbed. Then he heard it. A low, guttural voice whispering from the other side of the room, just beyond his sight. "I did it for you." The voice was raspy, as if belonging to someone who hadn't spoken in years. Then it stopped. Silence descended again, heavy and suffocating. Was he losing his mind? Had the isolation and the relentless rain driven him to the edge? Or was there something else at play here? As the seconds ticked by, the whispering voice echoed again, closer this time. "For you, my love. Forever yours." And then it faded away. Ethan stood frozen, his heart hammering against his ribs, the sound of frantic tattoo in the suffocating quiet. Was he alone in this room, or was there something else sharing its confined space with him? Suddenly, the television flickered to life. The static hissed, and the screen filled with a snowy haze, punctuated by random lines and geometric shapes. And then a face emerged from the static, pale and gaunt, with wide, accusing eyes. "You shouldn't have come here," the face whispered, its voice a hollow echo. Then as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, leaving Ethan in the suffocating grip of his own terror. The television clicked off, plunging the room back into darkness. Ethan was left in the suffocating grip of his fear, his eyes strained to see in the gloom, searching for the source of the whispers, for the face in the television, for anything that could explain the horror that was slowly enveloping him. As the night wore on, the room became a tormentor. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the television flickered to life every so often to show the same accusing face, each appearance sending fresh shivers down Ethan's spine. By now, the storm had reached its crescendo, the wind screaming like a banshee outside the room. Thunder roared, shaking the very foundation of the motel, and lightning flashed, momentarily turning the room into a scene from a nightmare. The power flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls as if the building itself was shuddering at the horrors contained within the room. With each passing moment, Ethan's terror grew. His mind, bombarded by the incessant whispers and the ghostly apparitions on the TV, began to unravel. He paced the room restlessly, his eyes wild, his steps echoing in the vast emptiness. The whispers followed him everywhere, their icy touch sending goosebumps erupting across his skin. Desperation clawed at him. He needed to escape, to flee from this room that seemed to be holding him captive, that seemed to have a sinister will of its own. But no matter how many times he tried, he never succeeded. No matter how hard he tried to break free from the clutches of room 313, he found himself inexorably drawn back in. And then came the phone calls. They started off as faint echoes, as if coming from a great distance, and then they grew louder, more distinct, until Ethan could make out the voices clearly. Voices filled with unimaginable horror. He would pick up the receiver and hear a scream, a blood-curdling scream that spoke of unspeakable terror. Then the line would go dead. He'd wait, listening intently, hoping against hope that it wouldn't happen again. And when the phone rang again, he would answer, bracing himself for the inevitable. He heard the scrape of a chair, a muffled thud, and then a voice, raspy and weak. "Please help me." The voice trailed off, replaced by the sound of ragged breathing. Then silence. And then the whispers started again, slithering around Ethan, seeping into his bones. And then the final call came. The phone rang, and when Ethan answered, he heard his own voice, distorted and echoing, saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Please forgive me." And then silence. The line went dead. And in that silence, Ethan understood. He wasn't just a guest in this room. He was the next victim. He was meant to die in room 313. As dawn broke, the storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean by the rain. The wind had died down to a gentle breeze, and the sky was a brilliant blue, mocking the horror that unfolded within the walls of the motel room. When the police finally opened the door to room 313, they found Ethan lying on the floor, his eyes wide with terror, his face ashen, his lips contorted in a silent scream. The phone lay on the bed, the last call still echoing in its receiver, and on the television, the static whispered promises of more stories, more rooms, more victims. For room 313 had claimed another soul, and the motel, shrouded in the false light of dawn, waited patiently for its next guest, its next story. So I hope you enjoyed that one, folks. If you did, be sure to leave us some love down below. Let us know how we did. We always appreciate your feedback, and we'll see you next week for another terrifying tale. Until then, stay safe and sleep tight.